Unlimited revelation.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Monday live stream. It's Monday, May 18th. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. Welcome. Top headlines today. The World Health Organization's global Ebola scare, and the clock is ticking on Iran. Trump is vowing for renewed attacks. Thanks again for joining me today. Without further ado, let's get into the headlines. All right, we're starting out with Fox News today. Trump to convene top-level situation meeting on Iran with no nuclear deal in sight. That's really not true. The reason it's no deal from the United States point of view is because Iran is only proposing a nuclear freeze, while Trump wants complete disarmament. Just the News is reporting Trump issues new warning to Iran regime. Clock is ticking. For Iran, the clock is ticking, and they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence, he wrote on social media. So it appears that Xi Jinping said they wouldn't arm Iran and they wouldn't interfere in the war with Iran. So that gives Trump a green light for renewed attacks on Iran, which he was planning to do anyway. He wasn't going there for Xi Jinping's blessing. He just wanted, or they wanted to see what's going to happen if we renew attacks. Now we have to open the Strait of Hormuz because, as Zero Hedge is reporting, oil slides after Iran says U.S. agreed to lift oil sanctions during talks. Long-term nuclear freeze is on the table. And that's what I just confirmed just a second ago, is that Iran is proposing just freezing what they have. Not literally freezing, but stop enrichment, which they've agreed to before, and stop any other nuclear activities. But it's not enough because the ballistic missile program, as we know, is also hinged on a lot of this, and they still have the uranium. It's complete dismantlement is what they're seeking. So they're trying to extend the negotiations as long as they can, just typical of the mullahs there. But the Financial Times is reporting Iran energy crisis enters new phase as peak summer season approaches. Governments are stepping up their responses ahead of a looming tipping point when traders warn that oil prices could jump again sharply unless more fuel trapped in the Gulf can be exported through the blockaded Strait of Hormuz. They're talking about oil jumping up from, it's around 100. It goes up and above and also below $100 a barrel for some time now. But they're saying that it could jump to as much as $180 a barrel. How that would translate in American oil and gasoline markets, hard to say. But you could see $6 a gallon gasoline. Some of the other developments in the Persian Gulf, the Associated Press is reporting drone strikes UAE nuclear plant as U.S. and Iran signal they are prepared to resume war. A drone strike sparked a fire on the edge of the United Arab Emirates' Seoul nuclear power plant on Sunday in what authorities called an unprovoked terrorist attack. No one was blamed, but it highlighted the risk of the renewed war as the United States and Iran signaled they were ready to fight again. Iran has continually fired upon ships throughout the what do they call it, a ceasefire? It's not really ceasefire, because they're mad that the United States is they're blockading. And the blockade will continue regardless of what happens with other traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran does not agree, it doesn't matter. If Iran doesn't agree to what the United States, it's going to prolong the war, and they're going to try to wait it out. And they're already stretching it out with these so-called talks that aren't real talks. They're just reiterating their position, which has always been, we want to keep doing whatever the hell we want to do, and you have to stop the military assault. Post-Millennial has a new development here. Story number 6. Terror leader activated terror cells across Europe to commit 18 attacks against Americans, Jews following Iran war. Mohammed Bakr Saad Dawood al-Saadi, who is a senior official linked to the Iran-backed militia Kataib Hezbollah, allegedly helped organize and promote the attack. So this guy is arrested. And I'm going to highlight some of the other stuff that this guy, so this is the Iranian response, or at least some of it was attributed to this leader. And he was probably given marching orders from Iran. So the terror cell response was weak. Mohammed Bakr Saad Dawood al-Saadi, a senior official linked to the Iran-backed militia Kataib Hezbollah, allegedly helped organize or promote attacks carried out by a group Harakat Ashab al-Yasmin Islamiyah. According to an indictment filed in the Southern District of New York, prosecutors alleged that Haya functioned as a front organization used to coordinate 18 attacks across Europe, including bombings, stabbings, and arson attacks against Americans in Jewish sites. Among the attacks was the March 9th bombing at a synagogue at Belgium. It was a failed attempt. They put it there at nighttime when they knew nobody was going to be there, and the guy quickly got apprehended. It wasn't a serious attack, nor were the two that were carried out in the United States. The bar shooting and then the synagogue attack in the United States. Which again, he drove his car in there. It was supposed to explode. It didn't explode, and there weren't a lot of people in the building anyway, and he was killed by armed security. Also breaking here from Just the News, article number 7, hackers possibly linked to Iran breached tank readers at U.S. gas stations. So big deal. They hacked, the Iranians, who are actually very good hackers, hacked into gas station oil, gasoline pumps. Hackers suspected to have ties with Iran may have infiltrated computerized fuel monitoring systems at gas stations across the United States. The ATGs, which are used to track fuel levels and detect leaks underground storage tanks at gas stations. I don't know how that would help in an attack. It doesn't provide much of a tactical vector. I mean, how are you going to use it? So they'd puncture the attack, and then they'd hack in there. They'd puncture the tank, let it leak, and then disengage the detection system. I don't know, and then presumably ignite the leak to make an explosion. I don't know. The sleeper cell thing, I think, was grossly overestimated. We have over 36 headlines to get through today. Thanks for joining me today. And I want to move on to our next story now. That wasn't much of a segue. Is the global pandemic scare, pandemic panic again. The elites, whoever the globalists you could call them, whatever, the corporate elites, whatever you want to call them, New World Order, they're trying to evoke again another pandemic. And nobody bit on the hantavirus because people just went online, did their research, and they kind of figured out what the hantavirus was. And all the cases in the United States, oh no. And now they're going to piggyback on top of that the Ebola plus several other vectors. Just the News has the headline, "It's still happening. U.S. lab exposed to African virus after monkey bites staff, and the lab remains open." What are they talking here? They're talking about a new report made public this week revealed that 2 biosafety incidents occurred in the last year at a high security National Institute of Health animal laboratory in Montana. One of the incidents involved a lab infected monkey biting an employee, and that detail that a public health officials left out of their acknowledgement of when the incident occurred. Secretive monkey lab accidents and virus smuggling scandals sound like something ripped straight from Anthony Fauci's playbook, yet somehow this dangerous madness is still happening years after this disgraceful exit from the government, his disgraceful exit from the government, referring to Anthony Fauci, and this is Representative Paul Gosar of Arizona. Oh, I thought I had the text on that other incident. Virus, I think I do have virus smuggling somewhere. I thought I did have it. Um, I left it out of this article. So it mentions here also virus smuggling scandal, and I thought I do have it somewhere. Hold on. Before we go on to the next story. Huh. Yeah, what the hell? I have a bunch of stuff out of order here, so hold on. Oh, yeah, I have. Sorry about that. And the New York Times. And yeah, I just had it. Um, Hold on a second. Yeah, that was weird. My bad. Yeah, I had mixed it up with apparently also um yeah, I had it confused with the UN, and so the UN downgraded their climate alarmism initial 20, I think it was a 2024 report, or I'll get to that story next. I wanted to continue on with the Ebola scare. I don't know how I fucked that up. Tech issue. All right, CNN. Global scramble to contain new Ebola outbreak as U.S. looks to relocate small number of affected citizens. International effort is underway to contain Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda that has infected hundreds of people and caused dozens of suspected deaths as the U.S. and the United States look to relocate a small number of its affected citizens. They worked, I guess, in the healthcare field. Stat has, this is medical magazine, in Ebola outbreak, a number of Americans in the Congo believed to have had exposure to suspected cases. The CDC says is supporting partners who are actively coordinating the safe withdrawal of individuals directly affected by the outbreak. New York Times has WHO declares Ebola outbreak a global health emergency. The agency made the declaration just the day after Africa's top public health agency first announced the outbreak. There's no approved vaccine for this species of Ebola. Thank you, New York Times. Here we go again. Says PJ Media. Story number 18. The headline is, "Here we go again. WHO says Ebola is global emergency as U.S. virologists smuggle pathogens." Okay. So that's why I didn't put it in there. I was supposed to go to this PJ Media article directly after the first article from Just the News that said that there were a couple incidents. One of the virologists smuggling in deadly pathogens. The other was from several lab incidents, including an employee that was bitten by a monkey, an infected monkey, no less. And so those are two incidents that are being used as vectors to get us, get the global population scared over a new pandemic. And as you know from the book of Revelations, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are called horsemen is because it's repeated, sustained attacks from these, from war, from pestilence, et cetera, et cetera. Going back to the PJ Media article, fortunately, the Trump administration withdrew from the United States from the WHO as of January. So presumably, no matter how much Dr. Tedros and his company rave, they can't pressure us into destroying our economy, undermining our elections, and wreck the lives of millions of people again. Yeah, and trap you in your home. And it was more than half the population there that got how would you say? They were mentally retarded. They were traumatized to the point of developing psychological problems in regards to anxiety, fear, et cetera, et cetera. PJ Media somehow, it seems rather ominous that this coincides with a purported investigation into a U.S. government-employed virologist who allegedly smuggled dangerous pathogens into the country, including monkeypox, which, if you remember, the media tried to scare us about before. Plus, you have the monkey biting incident. Children's Health Defense, which HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy founded, reported that the FBI was investigating Vincent Munster of the National Institute of Health after he returned from the DRC, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo, with pathogen samples in his luggage. Nor does one scientist smuggling pathogens from the heart of the country, now weaponized for a global health emergency, mean there is any sort of conspiracy, the author of this article goes on. Yeah, no shit. I mean, they're going to get us by hook or by crook. And so if it's not war, it's going to be pestilence, etc. Just the News, mastermind behind COVID meal fraud claim. Omar knew about the scheme. See, now I confused this. I moved this by mistake. Where is Ilhan Omar? Something completely different. It got mixed up because it said COVID. It is Monday after all. So give me a break here. All right, so we got that. Let's go to this next article here. Trump weighs Taiwan arms sales as part of negotiations with China, U.S. trade representative says. Trump says tariffs never came up during China trip. I wanted to go to this article here, article number 11. Just the News, class action lawsuit alleges Hisense Chinese TVs spying on Americans. So this guy found out it was a Texas law enforcement action, and now they're suing in civil court, right? Yeah, so now they're because they found out in a criminal investigation that the Chinese TV maker Hisense allegedly enabled their entertainment devices to spy on Americans, potentially on the behalf of the Chinese Communist government. So they figured out these TV sets were recording people, and there was a criminal complaint, and now this is the civil action against the TV maker when we find out that if you have a Chinese TV, Hisense, it's probably spying on you. The Federalist, how the CCP uses birthplace citizenship and surrogacy to manufacture Americans. If you didn't know this, the Chinese Communist Party is building a generation of legal American passport holders raised under Beijing's educational system and primed to return. So if you've been following my show or this live stream very long, that you know that we covered several times baby making operations for the Chinese. So a couple in California where there was a man and a woman running a surrogate business, a child manufacturing business, that they were born here, but then sent to Beijing and, trained in the communist way and the allegiance, and then probably sent back here for some sort of sleeper activity, which they're all, they're all involved in anyway. I saw another. All right, next story is not going to be that real clear politics story. It's going to be this one. PJ Media, Trump mocks UN for admitting new green scam. If you didn't hear this, in 2024, the UN-backed study asserted that a failure to address climate change, which usually means failure to impose money, more economy killing, freedom restricting regulation, and failure to give yet more useless academic grants, would lead to a drop in about $38 trillion of global yearly economic activity. That study has now been retracted based on a faulty data, too egregious for even climate alarmists to ignore any longer. What are they talking about here? This is the New York Post, article number 14. Climate group reverses course on doomsday predictions and Trump takes victory lap. Wrong, wrong, wrong. So the United Nations backed intergovernmental panel on climate change, the IPCC, which was quoted for many, many years, had quietly adjusted its modeling framework of a 5 degree Celsius warming by 2100 last month. The framework had underpinned a myriad of other analyses predicting terrifying consequences for greenhouse gas emissions. That's the whole sea level rising bullshit and the polar caps melting and polar bears drowning. And that brings us to our next article. Article number 19, New York Post, Minnesota squad representative Ilhan Omar knew about $250 million COVID meal fraud scheme, says the mastermind in an interview. Now, we all suspected this, and she hasn't, Ilhan Omar has refused to hand over documents or even testify. So the Minnesota mastermind of the state's massive COVID meal fraud claims, squad member Representative Ilhan Omar was in on the $250 million scam. Amy Bach, co-founder of the nonprofit Feed Our Future, was convicted in March 2025 of conspiracy. I thought, was it just a theory? No, it was actual conspiracy, also bribery and wire fraud for allegedly helping restaurant owners file fake or inflated claims during the pandemic to steal millions in child nutritional funds from the government or the taxpayer. Brings us to this article that I almost got into earlier, article number 20. Mastermind behind COVID meal fraud claims Omar knew about the scheme. Again, this is the breaking from the New York Post. Amy Block, the founder of Feeding Our Future, was found guilty in March 2025 on the charges I read previously for her role in the COVID-era fraud scheme, in which prosecutors said was a nonprofit operators and restaurant owners submitted fraudulent reimbursement. And she testified, she said in an interview that, yes, Representative Ilhan Omar was in on the scheme or knew about it or what have you. The point made here is not the accusation of wrongdoing, because everybody says, oh, it's just a Republican scheme, is that Ilhan Omar, has failed to give deposition, to provide documents, and to testify to the House Oversight Committee. Resist. She hasn't been officially subpoenaed yet, but she's been asked. She's corrupt and she should be removed. Just like Swalwell. I mean, Swalwell was removed by his own party, so. But they have to do something about Ilhan Omar. I just think, and I think she's illegitimate candidate for Congress, period. Zero Hedge, story number 21, D-Day for huge Meta layoff looms as AI job apocalypse accelerates. Welcome to the accelerating AI job apocalypse, affecting white-collar youngsters with lots of student debt. And many other people as well. And the thing is, it's like it can't even be ignored now because it's not just Meta. It's all these other companies. And we started reporting on this early. I mean, AI has only been out of the bottle for, what, a year or two? They will join a worldwide tally of more than 100,000 tech workers laid off since January, with more on the horizon. To these rank and file workers, the AI job apocalypse feels like it's already here, and even as they fear their own replacement, they are being asked by management to use and train the very products that will soon take their jobs, AI. So you won't be training a human employee, you're going to be training AI to take over your job. Article goes on quoting this guy, if you are on a work machine, you are probably being surveilled, but the framing that we are using to train this AI to do everyone's job, and it's sort of unapologetic, we're training your replacement and we're not paying you more for it. I mean, they do that all the time anyway. They go on to say that it's just a signal of how little Meta cares about their humans that they employ. AI is developed for one reason, and that's to replace humans. And how can people support it? As a novelty? Look, a robot. It could do everything a person could do. Yay. Good for you. Meta is not alone. Amazon recently trimmed 30,000 corporate employees, representing nearly 10% of its white-collar workforce. In February, the fintech company Block fired nearly half of its staff. So we're sandwiched between the AI job apocalypse and fraud. See, I was supposed to sandwich this next article up with Ilhan Omar, but DJ Media says, what if we are just exposing the tip of the federal fraud iceberg? Article number 22. So this organization exposed yet another insight into the sinking, rotten catastrophe that is the massive, systemic, and continually stealing from American taxpayers via unknown number of federal social service programs that for decades have all but hung in their windows signs say, come steal. And then actually liberal people and Democrat politicians actually, as you see with Ilhan Omar, is actually tell their constituents how to do it. And even with a wink and a nod go, here, there are these programs here you could take advantage of. So it's not just the perpetrator, it's the system, the Democrat system, particularly the DNC and their the whole way that they manage population with money. Post-millennial, article number 23, former Kansas mayor detained by ICE after pleading guilty to illegal voting charges. Jose Sabalas Armendaris, a Mexican national and lawful permanent resident with a green card, turned himself in to ICE in Wichita, Kansas. He was mayor of the town of Coldwater. Former mayor of Coldwater, Kansas, turned himself into Immigration and Customs Enforcement on Wednesday after pleading guilty to illegally voting in multiple elections. Were those federal elections? Maybe. I got nothing to say to that. I don't think public officials should be allowed to be foreign nationals. I think there should be a federal law. I don't care if it's municipal. I don't care if it's dog catcher. Doesn't make any sense. But that's just me. That's my opinion. I don't even advocate that policy because it'd be too complicated. More from post-millennial. Missouri middle school teacher charged with molesting 13-year-old student. Oh, how nice. 42-year-old Zachary Leonard faces 1 count of enticement of a child, 2 counts each of molestation. A special education teacher at Fox Middle School sending hundreds of text messages to a 13-year-old student that contained sexually explicit content. Hundreds of messages in a 2-day period. He also solicited sexual acts from the child, and the victim says they kissed twice. He was alone in the classroom with his victim for 48 minutes on one occasion and 66 minutes on another. Right, so what else? We don't hear a lot of what else went on but kissing, but we know the nature of the culture, as we do from this next post-millennial article. 3 suspected pedophiles arrested in child molestation case in Washington State. 4th perp killed himself. Dr. Michael Wilmington, a pediatrician that worked for Kaiser Permanente in Vancouver, shot himself dead on the 2nd of May. But all these other people were charged on a ring. So the wife of one of the perpetrators was found at home with a child that wasn't their relative, and I guess the hook for their little child molestation ring was clothing optional household. So they invite children over to their house and go, well, clothing is optional. Anna Hartley and Chad Hartley. This other guy. Who's the other guy? William Snyderwine. Sick. Trump administration promotes program to check voter eligibility. Critics fear a midterm purge. Even as Democratic officials fight the effort in court, the Trump administration has run millions of voter registrations through government databases to determine their eligibility, in a process that critics worry could end up purging valid voters from the rolls before November elections. Highly unlikely, because the prerequisite they look to determine eligibility are things that would deny them eligibility. So, sure, can people get confused in the systems? Perhaps. But they've caught, let's see, 67 million registrations, primarily from Republican-controlled states, have gone through a beefed-up verification program. What's a beefed-up verification program at the Department of Homeland Security, and tens of thousands of those have been flagged as potential non-citizens or people who have died. So that's the prerequisite they're looking at. So you can't really, if you're a valid voter, you can't be dead. Some states allow only a month for people to prove their eligibility, and others suspend it immediately. Well, I think you should be contacted, right? Or any effort should be made to contact the said voter, because if you're a registered voter, you have to have a valid address also. All they do is send you a letter and say, hey, we're going to kick you off. Says you're dead. Are you alive? Prove it. The scanning of state voter rolls at the national level is part of a broader effort by Republican President Donald Trump to federalize certain election functions and promote his messaging that elections are marred by non-citizens voting. And this is the Washington Times, is that even though instances are rare, I read instances every day. We just read an article from the Post Millennial about the former mayor of Coldwater, uh, Kansas, right? Who was the former mayor there, but is not he's not an American citizen, was voting and was arrested for voting in federal elections. Oh, I guess it's rare. But that goes back to that other article from PJ Media talking about, is the fraud, and this goes not just from scamming the government of the money and so forth and so on, but also in elections. Fraud is, if you discover cases of fraud, it's usually the tip of the iceberg, because with voter fraud, the whole point is swinging the election. Or they wouldn't be doing it. It's not like if you have a little bit of financial fraud, they're just trying to get a little money. Well, some criminals try to get just a little money, but it's different with voter fraud. The Federalist Georgia investigators killed 2020 election probe at Kemp's request, unsealed testimony claims. So some of the most eye-opening testimony came from former U.S. Senator David Perdue. In the 103 pages he described handing the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Director Vic Reynolds a packet of evidence in May 2021 that Reynolds himself called compelling enough to investigate. The materials, video evidence, and cell phone records, along with the testimony and bank records that are corroborated, as Perdue characterized it, had been compiled by Truth to Vote, which was a 2020 election integrity group. But 6 months later, in November 2021, Reynolds called Perdue back. According to Perdue's sworn account, Reynolds first told him that the governor wants me to tell you why we're not going to investigate the claim that was brought by Truth to Vote. Then delivered the blunt political rationale: we're not going to investigate because I'm a team player. If the governor doesn't want to investigate, we're not going to investigate. So the guy, Perdue, admits that Kemp had told him, don't do it. Yeah, here's that Real Clear Politics commentary by Frank Neal. I had wanted to go to this briefly. Voting Rights Act never mandated racial districts. And it didn't. 1965. I could read you what the justices said about it when they made the ruling, but it's always clear that there's a Non-Discrimination Act. And you want the Non-Discrimination Act, well, it's going to apply to redistricting also. So otherwise, don't forget the gerrymandering, redistricting in the Constitution didn't say anything about race. But you had a subsequent law put into place that says you can't discriminate. So you can't discriminate. And there's certain categories that you can't discriminate in, and that one of those is race, religion, etc. But you can discriminate for political ideology. Yeah, I know it's not in there. It's not. Should it be? I don't know. I don't believe in discrimination, but you can't really do that with gerrymandering because that's the whole point, right? So I wanted to also look at this commentary from Salon that says the real reason RFK Jr. is coming for your antidepressants, and this idiot, Amanda Marcotti, says Kennedy's attacks on psychiatric medication, they're attacks, mind you, follow a pattern of putting politics above public health. So she goes through this ranting, stupid article here. She's really, what do you expect from Salon, right? But she doesn't mention anything about black box warnings, antidepressants, driving people to kill, literally one of the side effects, and the suppression of the fact by the media that most of these mass shooters are on psychiatric medication. And they just even stop reporting it. It's like, pill bottle found in the guy's jacket or in his car or whatever, but they don't tell you what it is. And she goes away that it says, she goes down this path. I'm not even going to go down because it's stupid, but she doesn't admit to the fact um, that these drugs are dangerous. By and large, experts point to systemic failures that leave Americans more vulnerable to mental illness, and without access to drug-free interventions, which cost both time and money, a prescription is accessible in a way that a weekly therapy appointment is not. So that's what they're saying is like, oh, get people on drugs because you don't get enough therapy. But it's usually your therapist or your clinician that prescribes these things. You can't get these without a prescription. So it's drug is better than therapy, or drug and therapy, whatever it is. It's what people with mental illness need is intervention by the people closest to them, right? And leave all the doctors and stuff for people that don't have support systems. People are crazy. People are crazy to get on pharmaceuticals. The next article up here, article number 30, Trump trashes weak-minded Lauren Boebert for parading around with Thomas Massie. Vents, it would be an honor to withdraw his endorsement. And from Newsweek, article number 31, Thomas Massie's chances of winning primary plunge on the eve of election day. Election day today? I thought it was on Tuesday. In any case, I think it means tomorrow, right? I like Thomas Massie. I think he's the last real conservative in Congress. I believe that, even though he says I'm not a conservative, I'm a libertarian. I like him. But the thing with politics is you all have to row in one direction. And that's the way party politics works. If you have dissenters and stuff, and Trump is still very popular, and he is the leader of the party, and you go against him, is Trump terribly vindictive? If you know how party politics works, and Thomas Massie got a little personal. He was intimating that Trump was in the Epstein files, and there's no evidence of that. And so I think that's what pissed Trump off the most, not just requesting the release of them, but also Trump was defending Lutnick, it looks like. And that can't be allowed either. NBC, article number 32 from NBC News. Representative Thomas Massie confronts the full force of Trump's wrath in a Republican primary. The Kentucky Republican has emerged as perhaps the president's most critical primary target after bucking him on issues ranging from budget legislation to the Epstein files. Fair to Thomas Massie, of course, he's the last true conservative in Congress. The budget legislation, he's going to vote for giving money away. How could we be $37 trillion in debt and still give Israel $6 billion a year? Do they need it? I mean, it's not like, there are countries that need it, but in any case, I like Thomas Massie. I wish he would stay and just vote with Trump. The budget legislation I could see, and then you have to count to see if we have enough votes. If you sink a bill with your vote, it's not just a protest vote. If you end up sinking a bill by one vote, that's something entirely. The Epstein file, I don't give a shit. I think you're not going to get to the bottom of it, period. I mean, you have to find out what really happened to Jeffrey Epstein before you give a shit about his files. And I think there's no consensus on that, which is a problem. Like, was he murdered? He was either murdered or he's alive in Paraguay somewhere. Just the News, article number 33, Spanberger vetoes bargaining legislation. Do you believe this? So she's supposed to be a leftist, right? Governor Abigail Spanberger vetoed legislation Thursday that would have expanded collective bargaining rights for Virginia public employees. And I've soured on unions, but I still believe in collective bargaining, especially municipal. Not so much as I do maybe for corporate against corporations, because that's where they're really needed. Corporate workers using collective bargaining um, against big corporations, especially in low, middle, and low wage, like manufacturing and stuff like that. It's if you're an executive or a manager, you have more ways to levy your skill level to get a decent wage. But you know, if you work for a a company that's got 1,000 machinists, well, you know what I'm saying. DJ Media article number 34. If a blue wave were coming in November, this wouldn't be happening. And what is PJ Media talking about? Election narrative. But the prediction markets haven't been particularly kind to Republicans. But something is happening right now that doesn't fit that story. And I think it adds to the growing pile of evidence suggesting Republicans will defy history and hold both chambers in the elections. I think so too. I don't want to rest on any predictions or anything. You got to go out there and vote. Why? It's because shit like this. Just the news, Michigan House Republicans demand Benson release SPLC records. Now, we've all known what happened at the SPLC. So the Southern Poverty Law Center, which we all presumed was, but now it was proven, is actually constructing hate groups for a variety of different reasons. One's for fundraising, but it gets deeper in that. So in any case, Michigan Secretary of State and Democrat gubernatorial candidate Jocelyn Benson to release records tied to her past involvement with the Southern Poverty Law Center following a federal indictment against the organization. Oh, so they're looking to pass a bill asking her to release those records. Benson served on the SPLC board of directors from 2014 through early 2019, overlapping with part of the time frame outlined in the indictment. And it's a fraud indictment, but it's not, the crime is more serious than what they're prosecuting for. So they're saying that they raised money by manufacturing hate groups, and so those people were defrauded. That's the law. But the accusations are much more serious, which are just like the FBI had been doing, maybe still be doing, but had done. And the CIA does, and the SPLC does, and the is it? AFL? What's the Jewish group? They all do it, right? And some create serious they astroturf stuff, they create sock puppets, they have these agents out there everywhere. That's the way the real world works, if people didn't know. So it doesn't matter what group it is, there's some sort of infiltration on some level. Even as the FBI found out, knitting circles, Catholic groups, everything is infiltrated to serve the system, which is the occult system. And, we could get into that. We're almost out of time here. PJ Media, Cuba falling. What's all this talk about drones? If you haven't heard about this story as well, this is the fact that Cuba had acquired more than 300 military drones and recently began discussing plans to use them to attack the U.S. base at Guantanamo Bay. And where do they get these drones, and who are they coordinating with? Attack drones of varying capabilities from Russia and Iran since 2023. So that's who they're aligned with. That's why that's a no bueno that Cuba is still down there with ill intentions toward the United States. Not as it looks like we're careening closer and closer to World War III. And it's not Iran, because we just found out China isn't jumping in. So Iran is done. Last article. This is the last article. USA Today. Tick bite surge sending many to ERs. Map shown here. I'm not going to show the USA Today map. They're just trying to scare you again. The tick thing is another vector too, because it's like, did you see online they're distributing ticks? They call them tick boxes. I didn't really look into it. I'm not really understanding what it is, but people say that they're releasing ticks into the environment. Who? There have been many discoveries of these tick boxes. I don't know. Thanks for joining me today. How did we do on time? I think we did really good. So 37 articles in 50 minutes. I even started late today, so sorry about that. All right, don't forget to engage the channel. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for joining me today. Join me tomorrow. Live streaming 10 a.m. Rumble, YouTube, BitChute, X, Facebook. Don't forget you're under attack psychologically, biologically. So stay hip to the trick. I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
These people are crazy.
A new world order.
Look at me, bitch!